You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Do you ever have a kiddo pop into your office last minute and you need an activity to do quickly? Or do you ever wish you had access to hundreds of school counseling resources at your fingertips? Well, my Impact School Counselor membership is for you. Inside Impact, you get access to hundreds of resources sorted by topic, tier, season, or monthly lesson plans. Simply log on, find what you need, download it, and use it with your students right away. You also get access to our community where you can meet like-minded school counselors to troubleshoot tough cases, get inspired, and collaborate with your colleagues. Not only that, we also know how important it is to stay on top of your professional development. That's why we offer live quarterly trainings on hot topics that you need most. Impact is designed to make your counseling life easier. I know you're super busy. That's why I've made it super simple to access everything you need in one place. This way you can spend your time and energy doing what you love the most, helping kiddos. If you're looking for a one-stop shop for all of your counseling needs so you don't have to worry about searching on different sites, paying for things here and there, you can find everything you need on demand in one place in Impact. Head over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to watch a sneak peek video behind the scenes of what all is included in the membership. Again, that's stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to get started today. I can't wait to help you make an impact. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So today I have a very special guest on the podcast. This is a guest that I think will be perfect for the new year. This is Chrissy Nichols from the Chrissy Concept. Chrissy is a life coach specifically for teachers, and she's trying to get teachers to love teaching again and to refine that passion in their job. So today I have her come on the podcast to talk specifically to school counselors about how you can make little mindset shifts to start loving your job again and avoid burnout. This is a really fun episode. It's a little different than what we typically talk about, but I thought it was very timely and that you would love Chrissy's energy and suggestions for enhancing your life as a school counselor. Okay, let's go to the show. Hey, Chrissy, how are you today?
Hey, Rachel, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. I'm so happy you're here. So I am doing more guest interviews in 2023. So I cannot wait. You are one of my first guests of the new year. And I wanted to choose you for January because I love your topic that we're going to talk about today. So as the listeners know, we usually talk all things school counseling, but we're kind of branching off a little bit. And I want you to tell us all about who you are, but you are a life coach for teachers.
Well, thank you so much. I feel honored to be one of your first interviews for January 2023, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone out there. And I just want to remind everyone, just for listening today, like you're crushing it. You're crushing it in your school counseling spaces and maybe on your commute into work today. Yes, let me tell you about what I do, because I think it is very germane to what you do and how you serve school counselors. I do work as a life and mindset coach for teachers. What does that mean? Teachers usually come to me, and one of the reasons I think they come to me is that I myself have been in the trenches as a teacher in both international school all over the world. I worked at the American School in London, and I worked in Paris, and I understand that world. But I also worked in public school, most recently as a French immersion teacher. And I have worked in both high school and elementary school. So I understand the intricacies and the complexities of both worlds. I understand that teachers, and I'm going to actually extend that to school counselors, have so much to do. We don't even have time to pee. We've got to make copies and plan. And there's always that parent who needs us. And especially for counselors, this is true. I think mindset is so important because one of my jobs is to help the helpers. And in my practice over at the ChrissyConcept.com, teachers usually come to me, actually admin too, and school counselors. I have one of those as a client right now, so this is perfect. They come to me for time power, body balance, and relationship work. So my job is really to help the helpers, because teachers and anyone in a therapeutic space we really are giving so much of ourselves, we often forget to give back to us.
Exactly. Yes. So like they always say, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? I love that. Help the helpers. Awesome. So I would love to hear more. You mentioned 3 main areas and how you support educators. Can you kind of break those down for us?
For sure. Yes. Part of those 3 main areas, I would say all of them relates to my story. I came to coaching because definitely after year sort of 22, I was mega burned out. And this is in the before times, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID. But I was overweight. I was really single. And when I say really single, that means I had a lot of mind drama and thoughts, victimy thoughts like, I only work with women. There are no guys where I work. How am I ever going to meet a partner? It's too hard to do online dating, all those things. But really, I went to a trusted friend down the hall and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just do not want to come to school. There's a pit in my stomach every time I'm driving. What should I do? And she said, listen, you could go to therapy, which I think is great. I love some of my clients do both coaching and therapeutic services. But she said, I've been going to a mindset coach, and it has made all the difference. And I also went to this person and she basically said, okay, I hear that you hate your job and you want to fall back in love with it, but it sounds like you also want to leave it. At that point, I was just in a space of, I just want to leave my job. And she's like, you have to learn how to love it before you leave it. So that's how I came up with the 3 main areas that I coach in: time, power, relationships, and body balance, because that was the transformation I felt. Time, power, I realized just how much time I was wasting at school, chatting. I'm a real extrovert. That's why I came to education. I'm a real clown. I love to dance around. And I just really got on top of a time audit and where my time was going and kind of how I was lying to myself about my time, not in a beat myself up way, but just in a real gentle way. And those are the tools I take my clients through so that they're not grading on the weekends, so that they're maybe helping themselves when they find themselves spinning on thoughts, very much like counselors do, about kid problems, about what's coming up in the admin, about toxic anything, if we're thinking about it in the shower or on the drive home, just to kind of just be more aware of that. The weight, the body balance came because just as a simple kind of byproduct of falling back in love with teaching, I lost 26 pounds and have kept it off. And I help my clients be in the bodies that they are now and love them if they want to. Nobody needs to lose a stitch of weight if they don't want to. I think bodies are fabulous just the way they are. But, through the pandemic, a lot of my clients come to me and say, I have gained a lot of weight and I'd like to lose it, or I'd like to shed excess pounds. And then relationships. This is the core of what counselors do, what teachers do. And sometimes I know for sure counselors can be sometimes at the mercy. I know they're there for the kids, but they sometimes get sidelined, don't they? You know this, by like a very well-meaning teacher or peer or colleague or even admin that comes in and says, "Ooh, I just need 10 minutes." And then you're like, okay, 45 minutes of my day is about to be lost because I'm serving the adults and I need to be serving the kids, right? But it's very hard to turn someone away crying, or who's in the middle of divorce, or who really needs that moment with you, even if they are in a big body, in an adult body. So those are the real tools. I think that is the beauty of my coaching practice, is relationship with others, toxic parents, maybe even our students, admin, but really relationship with ourselves so we can create those healthy boundaries. And school counselors, gosh, they need them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love all of this. I was just thinking as you were talking, a few things. First up, time audit. So my listeners are probably familiar with me saying that. I have one of the programs we offer is our stress-free school counseling course. And the first thing we do is a time audit in the scheduling module. We're like, look at where you're wasting time, because we all feel so stretched too thin. So I think that is huge. Can you kind of give us like one strategy that counselors could implement today when it comes to kind of taking control of their schedule or like a time audit?
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing this up. And I love that we use the same terminology. Of course we do. And I really love, my brain will naturally try to judge and beat up on myself. And so I love with clients to use the word loose time. It's almost like loose change. So, and loose change is also wasted. So instead of wasted time, I just like to think about it as, there are some loose minutes out there that I want to get back. So what I really love to use is the Pomodoro method, which is just 20-minute bites. But the tip I want to give everyone today is, if you're at work, I want you to be brave. I want you to make that sign that says testing, right? Even if you're not testing anyone, or even if you're not really with another human, you're actually testing your brain. So that's in integrity. You're not lying, but put something out on your office that says, do not enter, right? I will be available to you at 20 minutes from now or 40 minutes from now. If you don't have those bite-sized times, just give yourself 10 minutes, turn off your phone, turn off everything, and just sit down to an assiduous task that you want to do. That's going to give you the most bang for your buck. Sometimes for me, that was meditating. Sometimes for me, that was resting my eyes. Sometimes for me, that was writing. And it's really important to turn your phone off, not answer those emails. They'll be there when you return, but take 20-minute moments at a time. You can also Google Pomodoro timer. It's just an Italian method of 20 to 25 minutes of just assiduous work. And it is amazing how much you can get done. If you want to scroll through those emails, boom, 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 go, 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 and just give yourself that gift. No distractions.
That. Yes, I had never heard of that method. So we will link to that in the show notes, the timer. That's awesome. Great.
Right.
And I love just the, the word change. That's why I love like hearing from coaches, because you guys always our words matter, right? And so even the smallest self-talk saying, wasted time, is just has a negative connotation to it. Whereas you just kind of changed it to loose time. So I really love that. Like, that's just a simple fix we can make in our mindset.
Another, on that note too, Rach, another really fun way to reframe your time is just call it fun time. Right? Like big fun time. Just take any playful words and just kind of view time like through the eyes of a kindergartner, especially if you are working in elementary school, like big fun time. What in these 20 minutes, it's big fun time. What am I going to do? And just be real playful about it. Use as many silly words like circus time, creative time, color time, whatever you can do to access that part of your brain that is less gloom and doom, less heavy, and really more colorful, playful, creative. That's the ticket. That's where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck.
I love that. I love that. Another thing I heard you mention was that your own coach was telling you needed to love your job before you could leave your job. And yes. I feel like, I know, I don't really know the numbers for counselors, but I know teachers in general are leaving now more than ever, post-pandemic.
True.
So I think I love that you're saying like, you could love your job before you consider leaving it. And I know a lot of our listeners do love their job. They love the kids, but a lot of the other parts of the profession can be so demanding and so overwhelming that I know they want to give up sometimes, because I know I felt like that before. Like, I love the actual work I do with the kids, but if I have to, sit through another meeting, or I don't really agree with what the administration's doing here, or, talk to a parent who's really negative or challenging what we're doing with the students, those situations can be really tough. So what can you tell the listeners about learning to kind of re-love their jobs?
Yes, so good. Thank you for asking me this very valuable question, because the other thing I want to say for anyone out there that's having quitting fantasies, I know I did. I sometimes work with teachers who are like, you know what? I went through some of these mindset tools, Chrissy, that you taught me, and I think I still want to leave. And I'm like, great. That is a really good decision to make. So the first thing I want to say is, it's okay if you want to go. It's okay if you want to leave. The work I do with educators, admin counselors, anyone in the sphere, is figuring out what next. Because we don't also want to make a 40K or 50K big investment in graduate school. Like, maybe I'll be a lawyer. Maybe I'll go to law school. Maybe I'll take the MCAT. Maybe I'll do this, and then get there and go, oh, shoot, I do really love being a school counselor, right? I do really love this part of my job. It's okay to go. I just want it to serve you, right? And so that's also work that I do one-on-one with people, is really saying, okay, let's really create a game plan. So step one is knowing staying or going is neutral. You decide what serves you first. You decide what serves you best. But the second piece of this, answering your question, Rachel, is if there are parts of your job that you really do love, we want to increase those parts through connectivity and vulnerability, and not being hard on ourselves and thinking we can fix everything and self-pressure ourselves. I always say, whether you're a teacher or a counselor, and in any kind of conversation, we first have to connect before we correct. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That means connecting with ourselves and saying, okay, kind of like we did with the time audit, I want you to check out your day, and I want you to give yourself grace over what can I control, and what can't I control. You can't control the length of meetings, but you can go to your head of school and say, hey, I'm going to present on this part of what my piece is, and then I have a hard out because I have another meeting. Whether you have a meeting with yourself is your business. Again, you can stay in integrity and not fib or lie, but you can also create these boundaries that sometimes administrators who are also drowning, they just don't know how to give you. So ask for what you need. If you know that you can't sit through a 2-hour meeting because you just can't, and you've got way better things to do with your time, ask if there's a way for you to present at the top of the agenda. Ask if there's a way for you to be in the parts of school intervention that really apply to you. Of course, we want to be there for our colleagues, and of course, we want to be there for the community, but that's important. I think it's also important to give yourself a break over what you can control and can't control. So many of us are doers. So many school counselors are fixers. That's why you have come to this job, and it's amazing work, but you cannot do it all. And there will always be more to do. So please give yourself a break over, okay, I call it neutralize and normalize. It's a tool I have in coaching, where you look at the fact and you say, okay, I have 30 kids on my caseload. There is only time enough in the week to see 7 of those kids. How can I group these together? What creative ways can I put this time together so that I can do my job and connect and feel good about it? But you can't control the schedule. You can't control maybe the fact that you've got a massive caseload, or you're in multiple schools, as you said, on different campuses. You can control your thoughts about how you approach that. I think we need to stop being so hard on ourselves and pressure ourselves and accept what we can do. And once you start putting those creative questions in a playful way, like, hey, brain, how can you help me solve this? How can you help me with this amount of work in this amount of the day? What can I do? And it's amazing. Your brain will go to work for you. It loves intelligent questions. So if you just put really good, high-powered questions in there, like, hey, brain, help me out here. Do some flow writing about any challenge you're working on. I also have my clients write all the time. They sometimes have muscle cramps in their hands, and they say, Chrissy, I can't write anymore, but it's helping me so much. It's one of my major tools. But yeah, ask your brain to help you. Stop pressuring yourself. Connect with yourself before you correct any situation. Those are my top tools.
I love that so much. This is so inspiring. Yes, a few things there you said. I just have so many ideas. So data, I always tell the counselors, use the data to explain how you can best use your time. I'm impacting these students this way. I have this data to back it up. So I don't need to be in this unnecessary meeting, because Correct. Instead I can be helping these students with this intervention. So, and I always am telling the listeners about data strategies, how they can use simple tools to collect data so they can then use that to advocate for their role and to show their, principle, this is the best use of my time. So that made me think of that. The other thing I was thinking of was you said, your brain will get creative and it will come up with solutions. There is a book by Marie Forleo called Everything is Figure Outable. I don't know. You're nodding your
My
head.
Bible.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
Bible.
Yes. So for the listeners, we'll throw that in the show notes. I read that last year, I think, and I just love that, just that phrase, everything's figure outable. Like take a deep breath. We can find a
Yeah.
solution for this. And a lot of times, you may have to get creative. So, oh, I remember the second thing, grouping kids together. That was
Yes.
a great suggestion. And I also tell the counselors that all the time. Like, if you can do a small group with these kiddos, not only I personally prefer small groups because they're just fun and the kids get to feed off each other's energy and ideas, but it's also a great time saver. Like if your caseload is, like you said, 30 kids, you can only see 7 kids this week. You can group them together. Of course, we have case by case situations where those kids need the individual one-on-one. But if you're able to group the kids together, then that is awesome because that's a great use of your time to help more students in the same amount of time that you have.
And Rachel, I just want to step in here because you brought up Marie Forleo's work that is so applicable to schools. I think the biggest thing I hear from teachers and in any faculty meeting is like, oh, we tried that last year. That's not going to work. Oh, I've already tried that. Oh, we did that curriculum. Oh, we tried that therapeutic intervention. Oh, we tried in a push-in model and a push. That doesn't work, right? We have a lot of these, I will call them mature faculty members who sometimes are the voice of, we tried that. Forleo in her book, and I think this is really helpful in schools, reminds us, hey, what can I learn here, right? I may have already seen this, but how can I see it in a different way? Mm-hmm. What else is here for me to understand? Even if we've tried it, how can we try it in a different way? Your idea of grouping is also, sometimes I think I can just hear our listeners out there saying, oh, we can't do groups. Just remember that's a thought. And my coaching is really causal. It comes from the cause of thought work, meaning every single problem or every single sticking point or every single thing that you want for your life comes from a thought. And if you think about it, the iPhone, the airplane, our cars, that all came from a thought. That all came from an invention. And I really love the words like, oh, I'm just thinking the thought blank, or I'm noticing my brain is thinking blank. In this case, I'm noticing that my brain's thinking that group work is less connective. But just notice that's just a sentence in your brain. What if, as you said, this is the time when 4 or 3 kids can come together in partnership, have a common vocabulary, be able to work almost together in a peer group without you at recess, or you give them a tagline or something, that could be even more connective than one-on-one intervention and way less tiring for you. Even grouping faculty together that really need some of these similar things, if that is your role at school, or if you're being called, even if it's not your job, you're being called to do it. I think really understanding and pushing back on your brain, just keep asking the question, oh, my brain's thinking this isn't going to work. My brain's thinking I don't have more time. My brain's thinking that I just want to leave school. That's just a sentence in my mind. It's not true. Or if it is true, just check it out and say, is it true? Is it really true? That's really the work of Byron Katie, who I love. She does something called the turnaround. And it helps us kind of push back on our brain. Our brains are just protecting us and doing exactly what they're meant to do. That's also what I teach clients. So nothing has gone wrong. It's not like we want to cut out a part of ourselves that we don't like. It's just our brain wanting us to stay under the covers, wanting us to just, go surfing in Costa Rica with Rachel. They want us just to stay safe and, just cruise. But change comes sometimes out of that pushback. Mm-hmm. And if we want something new for our lives, we have to just start thinking in a new way.
Right. I love that. And I know all the counselors are shaking their head yes, because they're so familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, which is all about thoughts, right? So they're speaking their language here. I love that. The last thing I want to ask you is we talked a little bit about this. We talked about, how people are leaving the profession, but also just that not only the burnout piece, but the balance piece. So when
Yes.
a counselor has a super challenging day, and a lot of times in this profession, we take our work home with us. I used to have an hour commute, and I actually liked it because it was an hour for me to reset. So by the time I got home to my husband and my friends and everything, this before I had kids, I was able just to be like back to my normal self and kind of leave all of
Right.
at work. So, but I know, especially, in the pandemic, people are working virtually. There's no commute anymore for some people, or for a period of time, maybe you didn't have a commute and you don't really have that time to reset, that like physical time to reset. So I just want to hear any recommendations you have for things mindset shifts that counselors can do to reset after a especially challenging day at work.
Yeah. I want to give a really great tip that I also learned from James Clear. I know we've been name dropping in this call, which I love, of thought leaders out there. He is, if you've ever read Atomic Habits, he's the author of that book. And he talks about a really important idea called pointing and naming. He says that pointing and naming is the way that surgeons and their team will close up a patient by pointing and naming all of the important things that they need. Like, we've got our scalpel, we've got our sponges, counting the sponges. So it's almost like a checklist. It's also a way that in Japan, the speed bullet trains that leave, people point and they name, right? So I point and name. I'll just give this example. When I'm leaving the house and I want to make sure I have everything with me. Okay, I've got my keys, I've got my iPhone, I've got my husband. I'm pointing and naming all the things, and it sounds funny and very playful. Yeah,
He always says,
and it is such a great way. Yeah, phone, keys, wallet. I go phone, keys, wallet, husband, right? Just to make sure I've got everything and that's essential in my life. And I think it's really important, even if it sounds silly. Sometimes the silly stuff is the best because it's really kind of awkward for our brains. But as you leave, first of all, you want to look at your day. If you don't have that great commute home, or as you said, if you work in a kind of non-linear way, meaning you work from home or you're doing hybrid, or you're maybe even seeing clients after school. It doesn't matter wherever your time is going. But if you don't have that sense of disconnecting, I want you to point and name it. So at the end of your day, I first of all really want everybody hearing this to make a floor or ceiling goal. A floor goal is your minimum. A ceiling goal is anything extra, like extra credit, to leave work at least twice this week at your contract time. So many of us struggle with this. So just start with something so easy, like, okay, I only have to be here till 3:40, or I know I have a meeting that ends by 4:45. I am walking out the door at 4:45. When you close your laptop for the day, even if you take it home, I want you to point and name. It is 4:45. I am done with my day. I am closing my session notes. I am walking to the door. I am going home to do that Zumba class that I've wanted to do for weeks and haven't gotten to. Point and name out loud. You're going to sound like a crazy person talking to yourself, but just say something like, somebody asks you like, oh, are you talking to yourself? Oh, no, I'm on the phone. It doesn't matter. We have so many spaces now where everyone's out loud anyway, but point and name what you're doing to tell your brain, hey, brain, I am finishing my day. Or let's say that case comes up about little Jenny and her really tough, challenging home situation. I want you to point and name that out loud, even if you're by yourself or walking your dog, and saying, I'm pointing and naming that I'm thinking about Jenny. I really care about that student. I allow for any thoughts about Jenny to come, but I want my brain to know that I'm going to think about her at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning when I'm back at work. Okay. Point and name what's happening for you. And then I'll just start getting automatic. If you can do this, if you notice yourself talking and pointing and naming in this way, I'm closing my laptop, I'm getting my keys out, I'm doing my drive, I'm taking that pottery class, please celebrate that. So at night before bed, I try to just celebrate one thing that went well for the day. Oh, I pointed and named my brain 3 times today, or I pointed and named this. I think that's going to be really helpful.
Yes, that sounds like such a powerful exercise. Okay, I have one. That was my last question, but then I thought of a bonus question if you'll have it. Okay, so good.
Please.
So you were just asking or sharing how at the end of the day, as you kind of wrap up, final thoughts for the day. Could you share with us, I'm sure you have an amazing one, like a morning routine. Do you have a suggestion for how a busy school counselor who's already getting up early and, getting breakfast, getting kids ready, whatever, heading into school, what's one small thing they could do in the morning to really prepare their mind for their day?
Yes. I mentioned the use of floor and ceiling goals. A floor goal is something minimum that you could do. Literally, like one of my floor goals was to do more yoga in my life. And so instead of my old way, which would be to punish myself into 20 minutes of yoga with Adrienne every day, or I'm going to do this January challenge, or I'm going to do it and I'm going to be mad at myself if I don't do an hour a day. Guess what I did? I promised myself I would do one cat-cow a day. That's it. It took literally less than 2 seconds. If I forgot it that morning, I would do it right before bed. One cat-cow. And guess what? That's how I got more yoga in my life. So pick any floor goal. What I really would suggest, and what is my ritual and my client's ritual every morning, is we do something called a thought download. You can call it flow writing. It's just emptying the contents of your mind on a piece of paper. You don't edit it. You don't look at it. It's not Shakespeare. It's not supposed to be. I ask my students, well, they are my students. They're my also clients, but I ask my clients to do 8 minutes a day. And if they are having a hard time with this, I just ask them to write one sentence. And one sentence could be something like, oh, I'm learning how to be someone who creates more time. Or I am the person who is investigating her thoughts. Or I'm learning about naming and calling. Or I connect before I correct. It could be one sentence. It could be one word. Sometimes my word for the day is play or nurture or support. And I write that on my hand and I just walk around, and people, even my students, when I'm at school, are like, what is that on your hand? I'm like, oh, it's just a reminder for myself. No big deal. And they are really intrigued by it. So any floor goal that you can do, and I'm talking about 1 minute of meditation, 1 minute of writing, one word, one cat-cow. It can be whatever you want for you. It does not have to be this, kind of triathlete Navy SEAL workout 5 hours a day. We're going to get rid of all or nothing thinking like that. It can just be a little teeny tiny thing. Your brain will say, that's not going to make a difference. Fight back and just say, answer your brain and say, oh, is that true? I put more writing in my life. I'm more aware of what my brain is doing. It's kind of like, I'm on to you, brain, right? I always tell my thoughts like, I'm driving the bus. All of you thoughts and emotions, frustration, anger, you all get a little backseat on the bus. You get your snack, you get your coloring book, you get to settle in. You can say whatever you want, but I'm driving the bus. You can have an opinion, you just can't have a say. I want to listen to all of you, but then I decide what's right for me, what serves me.
I love that. Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Chrissy. This has been so awesome. I know the listeners are going to want to connect with you. Where can they find you online and all the places?
Well, the very best place, if you're a podcast listener and you love learning about new things, I have a podcast. It's a hot 5 to 7 minutes because I know teachers have a lot to do. It's called Teacher Talk with Chrissy Nichols. That's the first place you can grab me. The second place, with a lot of free stuff, because my mission is just to help as many teachers as possible, is over at my website. It's called thechrissyconcept.com. So it's just www.the concept.com. I named it that just so the concepts I teach and can teach you and the counselors in your world can become their concepts. So it'll become the Rachel concept and the Sarah concept and the Kelsey concept and the Mike concept, so that you can really apply this to your life. It's not a one size fits all. It's about you and your brain and what works best for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. This has been so great. I know I'm feeling super inspired. I know the listeners are as well. So just what a great way to start off our new year. Thank you so much, Chrissy.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really enjoyed this chat, and I really, really love the work you're doing for school counselors. It is so needed because often those are the helpers helping so many of the other helpers. They're like the first helpers helping the helpers who help the helpers. So school counselors, one of my very dearest friends was the school counselor in the beginning of my career next to my room. And I just think the work that they are doing is keeping us all together in schools. So thank you. The world needs you. You are a gift. And Rachel, thanks so much for creating this podcast for them.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Chrissy. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.